Is that you, Phoenix? Yeah. Mum met him in the hallway. She put the ring binder folder she was carrying down on one of the piles of markings stacked along the wall. Uh-oh. What's wrong? Phoenix could hear Dad tapping away at the keyboard. It was getting to be the usual routine. Mum at her schoolwork, or her writing on the kitchen table. Dad in the study trying to get the game right. The one thing they never seemed to do was talk to each other. Phoenix wished they could give up work and get a life. Nothing's wrong. Don't give me that. What's happened? I told you. Nothing. It was Steve Adams again, wasn't it? Phoenix nodded. He didn't hurt you, did he? Not exactly. Then what exactly? Phoenix hated having to tell her. It meant reliving the humiliation. He kind of shoved us around, me and Laura. I knew it. He's a bad one, that Adams. Phoenix looked away. Tell me something I don't know. So, how many of them were there this time? 4. I'm going to have a word with that school. We don't have that sort of behaviour at mine. Phoenix thought it was hardly surprising. She taught 10-year-olds. He didn't want her causing trouble, though. No, Mum, he pleaded, don't. Didn't she know that would only make things worse? Well, we've got to do something. Why? When they lived in London, they had a neighbour who used to play his music at all hours, and at full volume, too. Dad went round once, and the neighbours started getting heavy. Want to make something of it? He'd asked. Dad didn't. And now Phoenix thought, I'm following in the old man's footsteps. Big ideas, but no action. You just tell me if it happens again, Mum said. Phoenix gave a half nod. Didn't mean a thing, but it seemed to satisfy Mum. What's up? Asked Dad, wandering in from the study. Were you two arguing? Nothing you need to worry about, said Mum. A bit of bullying, I'll handle it. You get on with your work and leave the real world to me. Dad glanced at Phoenix. His face said, ouch. Pop in and see me when you've finished here, son. After another 5 minutes of ear-bending from Mum, Phoenix escaped to the study. You okay? Dad asked. Yeah, I'm fine. He would have liked Dad to listen to his problems now they were out in the open, tell him how he'd handled this sort of stuff when he was in his teens. But Dad was no great shakes in the man-to-man talk department. He carried on as if nothing had happened. Good, I've got something to show you. Dad was almost trembling with excitement. Part of Phoenix shared the thrill of a new toy, but another part of him hung back, still annoyed that Dad didn't want to listen to his problems. There. Dad was holding up what looked like a very flimsy diving suit. What is it? Can't you guess? Phoenix shook his head. Here, said Dad, jabbing a finger at the balaclava-like mask at the top of the suit. Recognize this? It's the helmet I wore to play the game. And these? Dad flapped the gloves at him. Phoenix was catching on. You mean it's a virtual reality suit? Dad winked. Better than that. We've created a parallel reality suit. Phoenix felt the material. It was just like the mask and gloves. A second skin, except this time it was an all-over skin. It was bound to make the illusion even more convincing. You made this? Well, I emailed the idea to Magnacom, and this came back. When did it come? Second post this afternoon. I could hardly believe it. The game is developing by the day. Phoenix stared at the suit, but they couldn't come up with something like this so quickly. They must have been working on it already. Oh, well, I'm sure they were, said Dad, but they're ready to try it out. With luck, this kit will be ready for launch day. It's much more advanced than the first equipment we tried. Want to play guinea pig? What, now? Dad chuckled. No time like the present. Phoenix examined the suit. How do I get it on? I can't see any fastenings. Dad grinned. It took me a while to figure it out. Here. He guided Phoenix's hands to a barely visible line down the front of the suit. Now, just pull it up like you're opening a bag of crisps. Phoenix tugged and the suit opened with a barely audible hiss. What is it? Velcro? I couldn't work it out for myself. It doesn't feel sticky or anything. It's more advanced than Velcro, that's for sure. Phoenix put his feet into the suit and pulled it up to his armpits. He slipped his arms in, then finally pulled the mask down, snapping it over his jawline. How does it feel? Phoenix looked around. His mouth and eyes were covered by very fine gauze. I can hardly feel like I'm wearing it. Am I plugged into the PC? Hang on, I'll hook you up now. Phoenix heard the purr of the PC as it stirred into life. He strapped on his score bracelet. He couldn't wait to re-enter the world of the Legendeer. No way he was going to register the Big Zero this time. Right, said Dad. You're all set. Here, you carry on. Phoenix loaded the disc. Previously, he had gone straight into the labyrinth. This time, it was different. Credits started flashing up on the screen. Manufactured by Magnacom International. Director, Glenn Reed. Marketing, Arcadia Computers. Copyright, Tartarus Applications. Clues rolled onto the screen, teasing signposts to the rules of the game. Phoenix smiled. All Greek to me, I don't think so. The title sequence began. He stared at the screen with a mixture of anxiety and excitement as a horned face appeared. A thrill ran through him. Phoenix watched the strange figure emerge grinning from a boiling cloud. His hair was dark and wiry, streaked with grey. What's more, it came down to his forehead, to the bridge of his nose in a V-shape. His long, hooked nose was hairy too, and his skin was sunburnt and weather-beaten, scored with the wrinkles and crow's feet. Most noticeable of all was his smile, wide, thick-lipped. He was the god of shepherds, prophecy, and mischief. Pan. His hoarse, chafing voice scraped in the speakers. Welcome, friend, to the world of the Legendeer. Pan smiled. It was perfect. Phoenix had only played a snippet of the game until now. This was the real thing, complete with an introduction and player's guide. Hello, Pan. Let me introduce you to my domain. Our domain, thought Phoenix, as a sheer wall of rock rose before him, the summit swathed in mist. Behold, ran the introduction, cloud-dark Olympus. They say it takes an anvil 9 days and 9 nights to fall from heaven to earth. Yeah, I know all this. Get to the game. The game? No headaches anymore. Phoenix was almost trembling with excitement. Far below, my dear disciple, Pan continued, is dismal Tartarus, the land of dead souls. That sad country lies as far below earth as heaven stands above it. Do you remember how far, my friend? Of course I remember, Phoenix replied. 9 days and 9 nights as the anvil falls. For a split second he remembered Dad's presence in the room. But so what? He was enjoying himself. Your task is simple, player. You must go through the many labors of the hero, march forward through the very jaws of death itself, and claim your place on high Olympus in the company of the gods. Are you ready to proceed? Phoenix smiled. Okay, Mr. Pan, I'm hooked. As the screen faded out, then back in again, the game's illusions started to suck Phoenix in. He was introduced to a vast mountainside shimmering under a blazing sun, and he wasn't looking at the screen anymore. He was there, standing on the sheep-grazed slopes. Pan was present in person, man from the waist up, goat from the waist down. He was dancing on the mountain top, playing the 7-reed Arcadian pipes, and the strangest thought came to Phoenix. I'm home. Ready, young friend? Select your hero. Phoenix looked up. There they were, emblazoned on the sky, the heroes of antiquity. Heracles, Orpheus, Achilles, Jason, Perseus, Theseus. The list went on. They were arranged in groups. All but Perseus and Theseus were slightly faded. They couldn't be accessed. Fair enough. I'll take the boy heroes. Images of the heroes hovered in front of him. He remembered what Laura had said about the pictures in his book. He inspected the heroes closely. Theseus bore him more than a passing resemblance. By touching the floating image, Phoenix selected Theseus. Starting at the top, said Pan. Still, there's nothing like ambition. You are now Theseus of Trozen. Your father left you here when you were a baby. He is King Aegeus of Athens. You haven't seen him for 14 years. Just my age, thought Phoenix. The game fits me like a glove. Now it is time to claim your birthright, Pan resumed. You are the true and destined heir to the throne of Athens. Follow me, Prince Theseus. Phoenix, or was it Theseus, felt like he was being teased, but he was hooked. He started to follow Pan along a dirt path between the cypress trees. The heat haze shimmered. He could actually feel it on his skin, and hear the scrape of the crickets, and smell the sheep on the hillside close by. The illusion was even better than the first time. Besides the smells and sounds, he could actually taste the dust. Better than real life? No doubt about that. And here, said Pan, springing onto a ledge of rock, I must leave you. Welcome to your first challenge. He pointed to a huge boulder. Roll back this rock, and you will discover the tokens by which you will prove your identity to the King of Athens. Your epic journey begins here. Phoenix stared at the rock. It was impossible. At least, it should have been. But this was a game, and games are places where miracles can happen. He stepped forward and braced his shoulder against the rock. Straining every muscle, he shoved at the boulder. Nothing. Again, he was struck by the sheer reality of the game. This rock, it was physically there. He took a deep breath and planted his feet down hard on the sun-baked earth. As he heaved again, he felt his shoes sliding and scraping on the ground. This time, it was moving. It was gradual at first, then the boulder was rolling steadily towards a steep slope. With a last push, Phoenix sent it bouncing down the hillside. He felt the score bracelet chattering away against his wrist. I'm scoring. He knelt down to examine what was underneath. A pair of sandals and a sword. The ivory hilt of the sword bore the seal of King Aegeus, 3 entwined serpents. The score bracelet was recording still more points. He was on a roll. He weighed the weapon in his hand, remembering the grim trial ahead, his entry into the labyrinth to face the Minotaur. His face was concentrating on the beast that haunted the dark tunnels when a hand fell on his shoulders. His chest cramped in the agony of fear. It's the game. It won't let go. Suddenly, he knew what a heart attack felt like. His head was pounding and his blood was on fire. He was looking at Dad's study through a boiling fog, and the pain! It was as if he was being torn in two, as if the game had penetrated him and was ripping his flesh as he came out of it. What's wrong, Phoenix? You look terrible. Phoenix finally focused on Dad's anxious face. He was about to tell him about the pain, but something stopped him. The game had got under his skin, and no matter how much it had hurt, he had to play again. He'd been home. He'd felt the promise of his destiny. It's okay, he panted, trying desperately to recover from the shock of the hand on his shoulder. You gave me a fright. Seems more than a fright to me. You look awful. Honestly, you took me by surprise, that's all. Well, sorry if I gave you a start, Phoenix. There's a phone call for you. Reluctantly, Phoenix unfastened the score bracelet, peeled off the mask, and started to wriggle out of the suit. There was sweat this time, the sour sweat of fear. And all for a phone call. Phone call indeed. He'd almost forgotten the stone cottage in Brownlee existed.